You know that feeling when something in your life has to change, but you haven't gotten to it yet? Like your life isn't in crisis or it isn't hanging on by a thread or anything like that, but internally you are acutely aware that something needs to change, but you're like, I'll get to it when I get to it. And I know that feeling all too well. And that's what I want to talk about in today's video. I want to talk about what actually happens when you stop saying that and actually do something about it. I can tell you exactly what I'll get to it later looks like. It looks like you coming home from work, crashing on the couch, vegging out, doom scrolling on your phone, till your eyes glaze over, your brain never stops working. You grab the closest food item or DoorDash, Mexican, or whatever is quickest because you just cannot make another decision about what to eat. You pin things on Pinterest that you'll get back to later. You save the class, the experience, the things that you're interested in, and just say, yeah, maybe I'll do it one day. You tell yourself all of these things like you'll get to when things feel more settled, when you calm back down. And in the meantime, you're just existing. You're just existing in your life. You're not thriving. You're just going through the motions. This is what this looks like. And if anyone asks you how you're doing, you always say, I'm fine. I'm fine. That's always the answer, because technically nothing catastrophically is going wrong in your life. Again, you're not in crisis. You're not hanging on by a thread, but you are aware that something feels off and something needs to be done about it. But you've just gotten very good at convincing yourself that this is just life and this is just the way that it is. And that's exactly what it looks like. If you're new here, I'm Erica Prevail, and I talk about lifestyle redesign. I talk about modern work culture and how I healed myself from corporate brain rot after career burnout. I talk about wellness and I talk about creativity. And here on my channel, I've shared multiple times, I've shared my story around what my life looked like. And if you're new here, I lived this pattern that I just described. I lived it. It looked a little bit different for me because while I wasn't doom scrolling or things of that nature, what I did do was I told myself and I convinced myself that feeling this way, gaining the weight, it was just a part of getting older. The tiredness, the exhaustion, the not really wanting to do much for myself. It was just a part of getting older. That's what I told myself. And I was fine. I was fine. I was fine until I wasn't. And I know that we say we're fine a lot, and fine for us, fine for me, had become the goal. But over a lot of time and a lot of experiences, things had to change. Fine is just what we call it when we stop expecting more from ourselves. And I don't want that for you. And like I said, I've shared my story multiple times, from my burnout, how I got there in the midst of my burnout and what I was experiencing, my misalignment, my exhaustion, how I got out of it, and how I've redesigned my life today. And again, if you want to know more about my story, you can go back and watch some of my other videos. But today I want to share two other women's story. I want to share the story of Trish and Martha. And I have my notes here because I want to get everything right and I don't want to miss anything in regards to their stories. So one of these women rides the train every morning to work. She's a working professional navigating her day. Things are in the motion, like we're always doing, but she feels like something is off. The other one spends her days helping people in their businesses. She's client facing, she's high output, she's constantly pouring into other people around her. So these two women have different lives. Their days look different. Their schedules look different. Everything in their life mostly is different, but they both found themselves in the same space. They're not in a crisis. Their life isn't necessarily falling apart, but they are aware that something feels off in their lives. And they both just kept telling themselves they'll get to it when they get to it, like I did, until they didn't. Martha found me right here on YouTube, just like you're watching, and Trish found me on LinkedIn. And both of these women are actively raising their children. They both identify as being ambitious women, and they both have been telling themselves that they're just fine. They're just fine. But both of them finally stopped waiting and actually did something about it. And today I want to tell you exactly what they both did. So I'm going to share a little bit about where they both were before. So Martha shared with me that she had been slacking on what she calls like her personal care or her self-care, and not in like this dramatic way, but in a way where she noticed that she wasn't taking care of herself the way that she should have been. She had been quietly letting herself slip her rest routines, her daily routines, the things that were supposed to be hers. She had just let go by the wayside. Her days felt very hectic and rushed, from her work days to her after work days. She wanted more. She wanted a life where she prioritized herself just a little bit more. She wanted to start putting in some effort towards that. She wanted her mornings to have less tech. She wanted to start her days with more intention, and she wanted to start doing things on her terms. Now, Trish, on the other hand, she was a different type of tired. Trish had experienced burnout before, and she definitely treated rest like this trophy that she can get once she's won the game. And girl, working in corporate America and doing all the things that we do, the game is never won. So you know what that means? She never prioritizes rest. And like I said before, she's experienced burnout in her past, so she understands what those feelings looks like, and she didn't want to go back to that place again. So again, these are two different women, two different entry points, but the same awareness that something has got to give. Now I'm going to share what they actually did about it. So both Martha and Trish went through something I created called the Ambition Reset. It's a 7-day audio experience that helps you to start interrupting those patterns to help you switch out of that constant go execution mode. And it helps you do it in the moment, not a month from now, not a year from now, God forbid, not a decade from now, but helps you interrupt these patterns in the moment. It's not a course. It's not a long framework. It's practice. It's practice to help you reset your ambition, because both these women are ambitious. I'm ambitious. And this is what I created for myself. When I thought about how I wanted to, after my burnout, and when I thought about how I wanted to continue to move in my life, I knew I didn't want to throw away my ambition. I have things I want to accomplish. I have things I want to build. I have things I want to create. So throwing away my ambition was not going to be a part of the plan. But I did know that I could not go back into corporate America, or I could not start building something for myself without resetting my ambition. And that's exactly what I created. a 7-day audio series to start you to help interrupt those patterns, the exact patterns that I used. And both Martha and Trish went through it and allowed me to talk about their stories. Martha said each episode fit perfectly into her day, no excuses. And it felt like someone was finally putting words to the feelings, the thoughts, the patterns that she had quietly been living for such a long time. And Trish said it helped her recognize the patterns that actually led her down the road of burnout and to start making changes to prevent it from happening again. That's the thing about when knowing something is off. Sometimes you just need somebody to give you the language. And I've talked about this multiple times in videos too, that language really matters. And I think that's why some of my videos resonate with some particular women, because they're experiencing certain things in their lives and they may not have the language for it. And then I come along sharing my story and the language that I put with it. And they're like, yeah, that's me. Because while everyone knows what burnout is, and I did experience that, what my focus is after the burnout, after you're feeling better. What are you going to do with your life to not go back there? What patterns are you going to change? What are you going to start doing for yourself daily? What type of routines and systems are you going to put in place to not go back to that place? How are you going to continue to check in with yourself? How are you going to identify when misalignment starts to creep in? Because life will life and things are not perfect. Things will change, environments will change, systems will change, our jobs will change, our needs will change. And how will we start identifying that immediately versus months, weeks, years, and putting ourselves back into those same exhaustion loops that can ultimately lead us to burnout? And so here's what actually shifted for the both of them. Here's what Martha said after she went through it. She said the experience helped her slow down and recognize the patterns that she hadn't been paying attention to in herself. And Trish, the go girl who uses rest as her trophy that she'll get after the game is finished, she noticed that she needed more intentional breaks throughout her day. Not when she's exhausted and tired, not just on the weekend, but intentional breaks throughout the day. She said it helped her recognize the patterns that contributed to her burnout and start making changes to not let that happen again. Not after it happened, but before. And that's the whole point of this work. The 7 days is helping you build in some of those identifiers to start noticing and shifting some of those patterns that lead us down to this loop of constant exhaustion without throwing your ambition away. So you might be thinking, okay, Erica, you talked about yourself. You know, I've told my story a lot. I've just shared the story about Trish and Martha. So what does got to do with me? Well, I'm telling you about Trish and Martha because you might be somewhere in between. You might be somewhere in where Martha is. You might be somewhere where Trish is. Either way, you've known for a while that something has to change. You're aware of it. You feel it. You've probably even said, you know, I'll deal with it later. I'll deal with it when things slow down. You know, all of the excuses that we tell ourselves. But I've said on my videos multiple times before as well, like knowing is only half the battle, because you could know, you can have all the awareness in the world. You can have all the You can know, but what are you going to actually do with the things that you actually know? What are you going to do about it? Not after you hit the wall, not after you crash out, not after you burn out, but before, while you're aware that something is off and something has to give. The ambition reset is 7 days. It's an audio experience with me in your ear, calling out some of those patterns that help you shift the way you move throughout your day, the way that you start identifying some of those patterns without throwing away your ambition. And like I said, this is not a course. This is not a framework. This is practice for you to do day in and day out to start noticing these things. And you can do it on your own time while you're driving to work, while you're winding down in the evening, in between meetings, while in the morning, while you're getting ready. It's easy. It fits into your schedule. And like I said, Martha found me right here on YouTube, just like you're watching me right now. So if this feels like you, like I'm talking to you, like something that you need, I've linked the Ambition Reset in the description box and down in the comments. You've been knowing for a while now. Something is feeling off. You know you have to do something about it. Your life isn't crashing out. You're not in crisis, but you do feel something is off. And I always say that because that's the language that I used. I didn't have the language for it at the time. I just knew something felt off and something had to change. And what shifted for me, what shifted for Martha, what shifted for Martha and what shifted with Trish can also shift for you. And know the Ambition Reset isn't some magic pill. It is practice to help you start identifying those shifts that you need to break the pattern that you keep looping around in. You already have the awareness. The action, the link is in the description box. So until the next video, you know, you're aware, but what are you going to do about it?